home of rock and roll, I-95. It's Eric Senich. And, boy, just as we were talking about the show coming up Sunday night for Bent Brother, our hotline rings up, and very psyched to be talking to a couple of guys here who are members of Bent Brother, we can call them, and they're coming to Tuxedo Junction in Danbury Sunday night. And by playing songs like We're Not Gonna Take It and I Want to Rock, and by telling you to go to twistedsister.com for information, there's little question as to who we're going to be seeing come Sunday night. And from Bent Brother, we have guitarist J.J. French on the phone, and I believe Mark the Animal Mendoza there, too. J.J., can you hear me?
Yeah, Mark, can you hear it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mark's on a cell, and we look reasonably like the guys in the band.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's the rumor.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing about how this whole cover band thing is, because we are the greatest Twisted Sister cover band. and what makes it so unique, though, is that we took like a different approach to this cover band. See, most cover bands try to look like the groups as they would appear on stage. We look like the guys when we're shopping at the supermarket. It's like the whole, we screwed it up really bad. I mean, like somehow we made a left, and we should have made a right, and so we look just like the guys do when they're just hanging out on the street.
That I hear that. What is this? I mean, can you even say what's the reason now if you're going for Bent Brother? I mean, or is this just something we're just gonna have to just kind of forget the fact of the other band's name, or can you even talk about it?
Mark, did you catch that?
Not the whole thing, John.
Okay, just want to know why we called it Bent Brother this time.
Because it's a Twisted Sister tribute band.
Oh, straight out. The Twisted Sister tribute band.
I see.
It's a Sister tribute band.
Well, see, ultimately, what happened is that we kind of decided we wanted to be able to rehearse music by the band and not be under the pressure of having to look like the band Twisted Sister.
Right.
In anticipation of a tour that's coming up, that there's a press release that actually went out today in regards to that. And this kind of made it easier for us to do it because there was no expectations, because people wanted to know what the band would look like, how they would perform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we just kind of had this tongue-in-cheek concept of going out under Bent Brother as a cover band to be able just to perform the songs. And I have to say that Mark the Animal Mendoza does a really good imitation of Mark the Animal Mendoza.
I hear that.
He's an amazing recreation.
I mean, this is creepy. You guys look so much and sound so much like him.
Well, you know what? I mean, we had to change our names because, I'm J.J. Freedom now. I can't be J.J. French because of the war in Iraq. And, and Dee and Mark are affectionately known as Shock and Awe to the assorted SMS. And by the way, speaking about reasonable imitations, our fans look like reasonable imitations of what they used to look like.
That's right. Hey, listen, man, our late-night guy, the Finster, he went to your show at the Chance Theater in Poughkeepsie, New York, and this guy, he's got the leather going, the long hair. He's one of those guys, man. And, speaking of that, he loved the show at the Chance, and it was sold out there. He said it was an unbelievable show. So, I mean, so far since you...
to our next show, the Bent Brother show?
Oh, yeah, man.
Are you going to be there?
Hell yeah.
I expect to see you there.
That's right, man. And, I mean, a lot of other people are going to be going because these shows have been selling out, and so far, since you guys have gotten back together, it is working real nice, man. What's the vibe with the band?
Well, the vibe is great. The shows are all sellouts. I mean, they're done. This is the last one of its kind because basically we hate each other and we're breaking up, just like the original band.
Well, you got to do it that way.
I mean, we are so much like the original band that we even hate each other like the original band, right, Mark?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's perfect. I mean, it's absolutely, it's incredible how much we copy that band.
Well, hey, if you're going to do it, you got to do it to the tilt.
We decided we'd reunite for like a month, sell it out, and then break up and never come back. and you know what? We've turned down multi-million-dollar album deals.
This is what I hear.
Multi-million-dollar film deals. We don't want to hear from, nothing. I mean, nothing could get us back together again. We decided we were going to come, we were going to play, we were going to leave. And that'll be like a distant memory. And so that's it. This is the last of the 4 shows. And then, by some remarkable sets of circumstances and coincidence, we will basically vaporize. And on Tuesday, we're going to appear, or the band, I should say, Twisted Sister will appear.
Well, let's just tell them. We were hired since we look so good at Twisted Sister, we were hired to be Twisted Sister.
Well,
that's true.
That's good.
That's true. That's true. We are high. Yeah, we're going to
right.
we're going to metamorphosize ourselves.
That's right. And we're going to come back and switch systems. The guys in TS don't have to appear anywhere. We're going to do everything for them.
Yeah, it's a great concept. And you know how hard it was to find someone who looks just like D?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about an unbelievable, situation. That was the tough one, to find someone. We found someone who looks just like him. On the 29th of April, we're going to go to the Twisted Sister, however, will appear on the Intrepid at a press conference.
Yeah.
To announce that the band will be going to Korea.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
We're going to go play for the USO with the American troops.
Wow.
Yeah, the band is going to play. Twisted Sister will be playing for the American troops based in South Korea for a week, starting on May 1, going through May 6.
How about that? You guys psyched for that, huh?
It's great.
Man.
We're really looking forward to it. The band's looking forward to it. You have to support these people. And what's going on in South Korea is a little hairy right now. Originally, Twisted Sister had permission to perform, and this is serious actually. We had requested permission and received permission to perform in Afghanistan, Uzbekistan,
Kuwait.
Mm-hmm. Right, to Turkmenistan, like all the stands, okay, and Oman, Qatar, and Jordan, and then they pulled it and said we can't, and that's because the war was imminent.
Right.
And they said, where else do you want to go? And they gave us a choice of Bosnia Herzegovina or the Far East. Now, our guitar player Eddie Ojeda, he wanted to do a tour of Hawaii.
That would have been nice.
In support of the troops.
He wanted to go to every island in Hawaii.
Yeah, he felt that it was important for him to boost the morale of our troops stationed in Oahu.
Hawaii. Yeah.
But for some reason, he was overruled, and Mendoza basically threatened him. He made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Yeah. Well,
and we're going instead to Korea, and the band's going to Korea, and we're going to play Army bases there, and then we're going to come back on May 6th, hopefully SARS-free on top of everything else.
That's awesome. Awesome.
And then then the band will do festivals for the rest of the summer.
Cool. We're talking with, or at least we think we're talking with, J.J. French and Mark the Animal Mendoza, or at least people who are posing as them for their show Sunday night for Bent Brother, who's coming to Tuxedo Junction in Danbury. And in 2001, there was the tribute CD to this band that you guys are portraying on Twisted Sisters music with bands like Motorhead, Anthrax, Joan Jett, and the Blackhearts was on there, right? Sebastian Bach.
Yeah, and you know what? I just realized this, Mark. They did not ask Bent Brother to play on that tribute album.
What's the deal?
No, they didn't. And we're the best band at TS. I know we are, and they still didn't ask us to be on that tribute album. I don't care. We got to have a talk with these guys.
We really, and you know what? You better straighten them out.
Unbelievable.
Because I just realized that we were not allowed to play on that tribute record.
All right, wait till I talk to that D and J.J. Freedom and Mark Mendoza guy.
Okay.
J.J. Freedom. I like that one.
The tribute album was a lot of fun. Did really well. In fact, Mark Mendoza produced at least 4 of those songs, right, Mark?
Yeah, 4 or 6 of them, something like that.
Something like that. He did a bunch of songs by a bunch of bands. It was really great. And then, of course, everybody knew that the New York Steel concert occurred in November of 2001, 6 weeks after the World Trade Center disaster.
Yeah.
And essentially probably was the catalyst in bringing the band back to try to do something. We raised $100,000 for the Widows and Orphans Fund for the New York City Police and Fire Department. That's a fund that is overseen by Rusty Staub, the former player for the New York Mets.
That's right.
And Montreal Expos. And the thing about that particular fund that we like is that only 3% of the overhead goes to covering, or 3% of the money goes to cover the overhead, as opposed to 90% in most of these funds.
Very cool.
So we knew the money was going to the families, and it was something we felt very, we really felt so moved by what happened, and a sense of importance and a necessity to do something. If you remember, VH1 did that concert at the Garden, and it was your typical, Sting and James Taylor, and we asked them, why don't they want us? And they said, because you guys are too controversial.
I heard about that.
And we thought, how silly is that? I mean, if you're going to stand up there, we just got our asses kicked, basically. And you don't think someone's really pissed off?
Yeah.
We're pissed off. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If someone's going to scream it out, we were. So basically, we had a metal fest, and with our friend Eddie Trunk, who helped us out, and it was us and Anthrax and Ace Frehley, and Sebastian Bach, and who else am I missing? Overkill. And we raised $100,000, and that was probably the catalyst for us realizing the fan base was out there, and people still really appreciated what Twisted Sister was about, and it meant a lot to us.
Well, what's the relationship with you guys? I mean, is it much better? Do you get along much better these days?
Oh, Mark, do we get along better these days?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we're trying to portray Twisted Sister, so we pretty much get along, even though we know a lot of those guys don't. But I think we get along because we don't spend much time together.
Yeah, right. We try not to. Like Twisted Sister, we don't like each other the same amount that they don't like each other.
Right.
So we stay away from each other approximately the same percentage as the other, as Twisted Sister does.
I mean, JJ said before that he's basically calling, me and Dee Snider, shock and awe, because they can't believe we're actually, standing on stage together.
Yeah.
And not killing each other.
Yeah, I know. When Mendoza stands behind Dee with a guitar, it's a very troubling experience right there.
Yeah, exactly. And to tell you the truth, when we played the Chance, Dee and I drove together, just the two of us together, and they were surprised when we pulled in the lot. Nobody was hurt or dead.
They traveled together, and basically they're registered at Filene's. Okay.
Oh, that's not good. Oh, man. Well, you guys got your sense of humor.
You can send your best wishes presents to them.
I mean, and everybody always has their speculations. I mean, what exactly, there can't be just one thing that happens to a band when they the things start to, I mean, there's just a whole number of things that happen.
Oh, you really don't want to go there.
Yeah.
I honestly, you know what, it is not even, I'll put it this way. If you look at the behind the music of all those bands, it all seems to be the same story, okay, in many cases. In our case, the difference between what happened to Twisted and what happened to the Motleys and everything else is all those bands self-destructed because of drugs, all right? We just hated each other's guts. There was no drugs and alcohol involved.
Yeah.
It was pure hatred. It was a unique way we disbanded.
You did it in a clean way.
We did it in a clean way. There was no drugs and alcohol. It was just pure, unadulterated hate.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, but still that experience must have been surreal, I guess, or just, I mean, what was it like when you guys hit that point where you were just everywhere, all over the radio and TV?
Something, just the break of the band, I've never been married, but it's like the worst marriage that you want to get out of and never go back, right, John?
Yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely the worst. It was the worst. Divorce and never go back.
Yeah, I know. When people say to bands, "Why don't you guys get back together?" A casual fan will say, "I don't understand why," and I will say to them, were you ever married? And they go, yeah. I said, would you ever go back with your first wife? They go, or your first husband? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Would you do it for $1 million? Not for $1 million. I said, well, it's the same thing. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that went on, but I have to say that the years changed things. History changed things. The perspective, the band worked so hard to become successful, and in its wake, created something that we didn't really fully understand. In fact, I'm only starting to understand it now, 15 years later, that essentially what we did in creating the cult love for this band was that people really, we had thousands of people that followed this group. I mean, kind of like the Grateful Dead or Fish, for lack of a better example, or maybe Metallica, who became dependent on what this band could deliver as a live entity. And when we finally put it back together and performed, and I know I speak on behalf of the guys in the band because we sit there in awe of the reaction, I think, from the audience. It's like what we five do, only we five can do this particular thing.
Right.
And that's it. And at the time, certain members of the band didn't appreciate that these five could actually do it.
Yeah. Okay,
but now it is extremely clear and understood that these five individuals are the only ones that can do it. And I think that there's a respect within the band itself that when we stand up on stage to deliver the goods, we deliver the goods. And we have to live with this reputation. We've developed one in which people consider us as being one of the greatest live bands out there. And it's because we did it, I don't know, we played like over 3,000 nights over the 15-year period of time. If you add the shows involved, which in many cases there were more than 2 and 3 shows a night in the early days, we played 9,000 shows together. When you do 9,000 shows, then something happens. You know, this is what you do for a living. No matter what else we ever do in our lives, we'll probably never do anything as great as we did that.
Well, around these parts, we always get somebody who, when you start talking bands and music, and then when the Twisted Sister name comes up, people around here will always say, I mean, man, those guys, I mean, and they would say, this is before, before Stay Hungry came out.
Right, before the record deal came.
You guys were setting attendance records in a lot of those clubs in the New York area, right?
Yeah.
And just, it was a massive cult following that was starting to come before all that commercial success. So I guess that, you look back on it now, those are the people that have been dying to see you guys come back again right now.
Yeah, and they tell their friends and their kids now.
Yep.
Because I think it's interesting because the people who come in the clubs are a lot of the fans from back in the day. But when we play concerts, they'll bring their kids with them, and they'll say you got to experience this thing. So we have a lot of responsibility to want to make sure that the band fulfills the expectations of our fans.
We're talking with J.J. French, Mark the Animal Mendoza from Bent Brother, playing at Tuxedo Junction in Danbury on Sunday night. And not to bring things down too much, but I really am interested in getting your guys' thoughts on the Great White Concert in Rhode Island. And, what was your reaction to it? What do you think about it now as it's a couple of months, since then? What goes through your mind when you think about that?
Mark, did you hear?
Yeah, he was talking about the Great...
Yeah, the Great White...
in Rhode Island?
Yeah.
It's a tragedy that should never have happened. And, can I second guess anybody who was there? I mean, we all know, we all in the business know what can and can't be done. And Twisted Sister never used that stuff before, neither has Bent Brother, and we're not going to. It's a tragedy that it happened. It's an absolute tragedy. It shouldn't have happened. What went on there shouldn't have happened. But I wasn't there, and I can't second guess other people, and I can't sit here and debate it on the radio, what someone said and what permission they didn't get. It's tough to say that. It's a tragedy, and we would never allow something like that to happen at one of our shows.
Yeah, back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s when we were playing bars, we were asked by club owners, "Are you guys going to have flash pots and do all that kind of stuff?" And I, basically we were our own, flash pots.
We have the best special effects in the world.
Yeah, we're our own special effect, but
we have the band and we have Dee Snider. I mean, what more special effects do you want than that?
But the fact is that we always question the intelligence of blowing up pyrotechnics in an enclosed place.
Absolutely.
And so we never liked it and we never used it. And when it happened, when what happened in Rhode Island happened, we got a phone call from Fox News and they said they wanted quotes. And I said, "Are you asking me for a quote because you're assuming we used this stuff back in the day?" And they said, "Yeah, and we never used it." They said, "Why?" I said, "Because it was stupid 25 years ago, and all it proved that it was stupid today."
We had, Jay, you remember on Long Island, the club on Long Island had burned down.
Oh, Rum Bottoms burned. Yeah, Rum Bottoms. Yeah.
Seaford, Long Island.
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately, no one was killed in that one.
Yeah.
But that was in the heyday of clubs on Long Island too, when they had a huge fire and burned the place down. People got hurt, but no one died. But no, we were never comfortable at using anything explosive in any of these clubs we played, even concerts. We really never used anything.
Yeah, we never used fire. In fact,
we never used fire or anything flammable in our shows.
In Europe, for the festivals, they've asked us to use pyro on a couple of things, and we're probably going to do it this year in these huge outdoor stadiums, under the aegis of the professionals. But we would never do it in an enclosed place. It never made any sense to do it in an enclosed place.
No, it's surprising to me that a building that's that old, they don't require the sprinkler systems for buildings that get to that.
Again, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and debate, the Rhode Island, state law on what requires it, but I understood that because the building was so old, it wasn't grandfathered in, and I'm not sure. You can't. I'm not going to quote me on that. But to me, walking in and you look at the place, and I'm not trying to bad rap the club at all, and I'm not sticking up for Great White or saying that they were wrong. You just wouldn't do it if a club is all wooden and has a low stage like that. Nor would you do it unless you got a license to do it. You got to have some piece of paper that gives you permission that says you can do this, and not a word-of-mouth thing. That's a liability factor that's huge, and we all know that because that's what this day and age is. It's all liability. Yeah. And you walk in and you do something like that, well, then you're liable for it. You're liable even if you have the permission. But at least you got something that says, yeah. I mean, when we played Poughkeepsie the other night, what most people don't see is that at the beginning of the night, right after our sound check, the fire marshals were there at Poughkeepsie, You know, not to be mean or anything, but they wanted to make sure, they knew the show was sold out, they wanted to make sure we were not using, or if we were using it, we had the permission, but we were not. So they came in and checked everything, looking for any kind of flash pods or pyrotechnics or, you know, powder that we use to do this or chemicals. And we said, hey, you know, look wherever you want to look. There's nothing. And then they asked us if the opening bands were going to, and they said, no one has permission. They haven't gotten it from the club, and they're not going to get it from us to put pyros on this stage.
Right.
So they looked all over the place, and they were just happy with what they saw, and they said, have a good show, and left.
Yeah.
Eric, in 1973, when Twisted Sister started playing 30 years ago, don't even, the thought of it shuddered. But I was, 10 at the time? It was amazing. I looked 18. But back then, in the first 6 months that the band was playing bars, there was a fire at Gulliver's. I don't know if you remember this. Gulliver's was on the Connecticut-New York border, and it was a disco. There was no live band, and a lot of kids died in that fire. And that ushered in our first year playing, and so we automatically, I think, recoiled from ever wanting to use pyro. Then 2 years later, the Bonnie Parker band in Long Island had pyro, and the pyro went up and lit rum bottoms on fire and burned it down. And then a couple years later, a band called Baby was performing in Long Island, lit off flash pots and burned some kids' eyes out. So all the history of this was not good. Like I said, it didn't make sense back then, and it's nice to know 25 years later that it still didn't make sense, now. And the clubs did nothing particularly to prepare themselves to have something like that. So I'm really shocked. But I will say this, and we can close the subject on it. We know every agent in the business, and now basically no pyro is the rule.
That's good.
There's no pyro anywhere in these clubs. I mean, you're not going to find. You see in contracts now.
Yeah.
Absolutely no pyro. And one last thing, I was surprised during the Grammys that nobody asked for a minute of silence for the victims, because frankly, the Grammys and the music industry is about people becoming fans of music, and the fact that that nobody said, "Could we have a minute of silence for the innocent victims who are the people who support our industry?" Really kind of shocked me. And they used pyro during that show. I don't know if you realize that.
That's right, they did.
And I thought, how insensitive, given the time frame.
Sure.
I was kind of blown away by that. You know, it didn't make sense to me that A, it wasn't acknowledged, and B, that they used pyro on it. And it was a shame. And hopefully, no one else will die in the process of trying to go out for a night of enjoyment.
We're talking with J.J. French, Mark the Animal Mendoza, Bent Brother, coming to Tuxedo Junction in Danbury Sunday night. And before I let you guys go, JJ, I got to ask you this, because the story about you at one time playing with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley in a band called Rainbow, is this true?
No. Now, you see, is that from that?
Hey, Jay, here they are again, another story, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, that's from that insert from the CD that was completely misquoted.
Well, actually, I read it on a website, allmusic.com.
Yeah, it was all screwed up. It was Wicked Lester, and it was simply a situation in which the attorney for the producer of the Wicked Lester album, which is the band that preceded Kiss, lived in my apartment building and got me an audition in 1972 with Gene and Paul for Wicked Lester. I went down to the audition. I didn't make it. I was one of hundreds of guitar players that auditioned. And basically, they got Ace probably about a month after I auditioned for them. And it was really a footnote. It was a conversation that I had with a reporter many years ago, and they just said, "Did you have any affiliation with the other band?" I said, "The only thing is, I once auditioned for Wicked Lester." So did thousands of musicians.
Oh, that's the story.
And that's the whole story. But it was really nothing more than that. I hung out for 2 weeks with them, and I became friends with the guys. And then when they got Ace and they got Peter, they called me to tell me the band was rehearsed, and would I like to come down to a rehearsal. And sometime around September or October of '72, I went down to the loft on 23rd Street and saw the whole band in its completion, the four of them, with their Marshall stacks and everything, no makeup yet. They had just decided to call themselves Kiss maybe a day before, and they performed the whole first album. And I looked at that and said, I want to be in a band with Marshall amplifiers and stuff like that. And Twisted Sister started 3 months after that.
How about that?
So that's kind of like the timeline. Twisted got together December of 1972.
Wow, so we got the story straight now.
So that's the story.
Guys, thanks. We really thank you for taking the time to talk to us. J.J. French, Mark the Animal Mendoza from Bent Brother.
We expect to see you there on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll see you, Eric.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, man. Listen, I mean,
I'll come looking for you.
I'm not gonna, start giving away ages and all that stuff, but one of the first albums I ever bought was Stay Hungry, man. That was, a classic.
First album I ever bought was Korn.
Yeah.
What do you, like 2 years ago? I'm like, what, 18 now?
Yeah.
What are you guys talking about?
Hey.
All
right, guys.
Thanks, man.
We can't wait for Sunday night.
Thank you.
All right. And here's something you will be hearing from Bent Brother on Sunday night. We're Not Gonna Take It. Home of rock and roll, I-95.